Hopefully they come back. Lost everybody.
Well, if they see us connected to Facebook, they may be more motivated. Like, okay, they're on.
All right, Lisa, I'll let you.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a nice rainy day afternoon at home with your families. We are CPAC, and we're here to talk to you today about virtual PPTs. We have 5 consultants with us today, which is pretty amazing. My name is Lisa Opert. I'm a mom of 4. 2 of my 4 have IEPs. One for speech processing disorder and epilepsy, and the other has autism. So who would like to go next?
Okay, I'll just jump in at once. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Adriana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana Fontaine. I'm a parent consultant with CPAC, and I have 2 children, one with AP.
I'm not on video, but yeah. I can't hear me, can they?
Yeah. Okay. I think we're good.
Who would like to go next?
Oh, you already said
Thank you, Adriana.
I said it, yes. I don't know if there was so much feedback, but.
Oh, no worries. My name is Keo, and I work for CPAC. I have 4 sons. 3 of them get services, 2 under IEPs and 1 under a 504. And I'm in the New Haven office.
No, you cannot come on here.
So I'm Leona Domchek. I'm a parent consultant with 3 boys. We have lots of boys here today. And I have 2 kids on an IEP and 1 on a 504.
And I'm Lynn Rule. I am also a parent consultant with CPAC. I have 3 children, 1 with an IEP.
Thank you. Well, today we were going to talk about, so welcome to everybody. I see Phyllis, we see you every Thursday. So nice to see you back. Sherry, Kristen, and Damaris, I think. So nice to have you guys. We're going to talk about virtual PPTs and what those may look like and help answer any questions or maybe alleviate a little bit of stress and anxiety that's around them. So I personally have not held any PPTs. So I'm going to kind of ask Leona to talk about her experience and a couple of other parent consultants. Hi, Amy.
You said hi to Amy. Yeah, we're like, hi, Amy. So thank you guys for joining us today. We are going to talk about, one of the subjects that came up was, what do virtual meetings and virtual PPTs look like? When we first started this, we thought we might go back to school and have our meetings, so we were all patiently waiting. And as we have gone on our COVID adventure in distance learning, we realized that we're going to need to have some of these meetings in a virtual format. So the conversation has been, what do they look like? How are they happening? Where are they happening? And what to do if you need them. So out there in our people who are attending us, has anybody had one yet virtually? Whether you're a provider or a parent.
As a provider, yes. I have my son's 504 tomorrow, but not a PPT.
So any advice? Did it go well?
Yeah, I mean, I think sharing your concerns and being open and honest with your feelings is probably the easiest starting point, but also giving a little leeway to families and providers on both ends for not knowing what each other is going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and if anybody else, feel free to unmute, because I did see a couple, but one of the things that it looks like is it looks like just like this. So it looks just like all the Zoom meetings, and there's different, I see your hand up, Phyllis. I'll finish this point and then unmute you. One of the things is they use different platforms too. So you go to the meetings and you're not exactly sure what kind of platform it's going to be, but in general, it looks just like this. And to me, it's like the Brady Bunch, which probably totally dates me, but that's what I see. Like, we're all getting ready for the meetings and we all pop up into our boxes and everyone says hello. And we're a lot more visual now, right? So we're all like, hi, how are you? Oh, it's so, which is great, right? We have great engagement to start the meetings. But as we progress, the meetings can go off. I'm going to go, before I finish my next topic, go to Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis.
She said it was a mistake.
Oh, okay. She said it was a mistake. Sorry. But as we start the meetings and we get into the conversation of what's going on in the particular classroom, there's a lot of things that we get at the meetings, right? We walk away with a lot of papers, even though we ask for them beforehand, hopefully. At the meetings, we still usually have copies of things like teachers' reports, any new evaluations. We might have current grades, things like that, that in this virtual format, we probably have been given access to, but maybe not readily available in front of us. So right off the bat, that's one thing, because we're talking about a document and we're referencing it and we don't know that everybody has it on hand to refer to or to look at. So sometimes that's one challenge that we can face. Does anybody else want to talk about other challenges? Jump in.
I would say communication can be a challenge for families. Are they communicating enough? Are they not communicating at all? How are they going to communicate during the meeting? And are they comfortable using the chat box? Depending on the platform, can they find the chat box? Is it easy, or do they have to navigate a new system?
That's a good point, Keo. And I think I have been supporting families at PPTs, virtual PPTs. I've had the opportunity to support 4 families so far. And I feel that definitely there needs to be work towards best practices on holding online PPT meetings. I feel that if the team was able to show the IEP, like we were saying in a screen, sharing the screen, that would be a very good way for parents to participate. And I feel that one thing that kept happening at one PPT is that the parent was muted and the facilitator did not look at the little button. So the parent kept talking and probably she was losing her train of thought. So I think that's something that schools need to be considered.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add? I do want to tell anybody, if you have any questions, you're more than happy to unmute yourself right in the chat box. And if you're on Facebook Live, please feel free to comment and we will try to respond to you as quick as possible.
I think the concern going into it would be how like fluid of a conversation is it going to be with people muting, unmuting, and then not realizing that you've been muted when you've been talking for 3 minutes. So yeah, I think that's a great point, Adriana. Thank you for bringing that up. Just being aware that, we literally are talking on microphones. It's not a fluid conversation like we're used to. So just to be really aware that parents, this is an overwhelming thing. And especially those that are not very technologically savvy, like myself. I don't know when I'm muted half the time and when I'm not. So I think it's a really great thing to have somebody, even if it was just one person there, just to say, this will be my role when I'm not speaking. That one person is devoted to it.
And Lisa, to add to that point, I think something that I see as an advantage is that I found that these meetings are more organized because of that, because of the system. So everybody has a role. Someone presents the agenda, someone introduces, we have more time. So there's not so much chit-chatting going on like in the, if you're face-to-face. So I encourage parents to utilize that to, whenever they have like a question after the professional introduces himself to the group, they can take that moment because nobody's gonna over-talk anyone. So that's one positive aspect that I found in virtual PPT meetings.
And there's also nothing wrong with starting the whole conversation with saying, this is something that's very new to me. I have not had an awful lot of experience in these meetings. And could someone please give me a couple of guidelines or a couple of suggestions? If we are not at a point where we can have an administrator of the meeting, if you will, that lays out all the steps. Yesterday, I attended a webinar, and they actually took the first 5 minutes and said, because we realize not everyone knows Zoom, here are some things that we're going to teach you. And they had a little screen that popped up. They explained the chat button. They explained muting. And so it was really very helpful, I think, to some of the people that were there. But there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know.
I was also going to mention about the platform. So schools may have already identified a platform that they use, but it may not work with your technology. So knowing that you could discuss those options and have a backup plan, because maybe your computer won't allow Microsoft Meet or Google Meets or Zoom. So then what's the next step? Maybe there's issues with internet that day. So are you calling in? Are you going to reschedule? Do you have a good landline, or you're also using your cell phone and maybe cell phone at home is spotty? So kind of having that conversation ahead of time, maybe doing a test run and not waiting for the day of, because you're already going to have fears of what's going to happen at the PPT because it's in a very different format. So I encourage you to have the conversation prior to the meeting about that backup plan, technology, and the phone. If you are going to use the phone. And the other thing that comes to mind is if you're a visual person, you may prefer to have all members be on video if possible. And I say that because yesterday I was at a PPT supporting a family, and every single member, with the exception of me as CPAC staff, the camera was off. And I think about me as a parent, that didn't feel good. And they could have had a conversation with mom and say, hey, mom, what do you think? How do you feel? But again, you know, sometimes parents don't know that they could have these conversations. And I get that a lot of staff is working from home. They have their families, they, you know, sometimes for confidentiality, but every single member. So if you're the kind of person that needs to see who you're talking to and you want to read body language because it's important for you, have the conversation ahead of time and say, I expect all members, just like if you were in school, to be available and accessible and present, because you want to make sure they're focusing on the conversation. When the video is off, you can only assume that they're really not engaged and doing something else. That's right, Lisa. So keep that in mind as well.
I did ask for that. I did ask for the cameras to be turned on for the folks that were at the meeting that I had done, because I am one of those people who does try to read the room, if you will. Mm-hmm. And body language says an awful lot. And oftentimes you can hear more with body language than you can with an actual voice. So.
Absolutely.
I had to do the same. I'm like, for my own children's PPT, they kept saying, you're going to call in. I was like, no, this has to be video. And they're like, no, it'd be video. But they kept saying, call in. And I was kind of freaking out and I was very honest. And I said, I will take everything negatively if I can't see your smiling faces, because it's instantly how I'm going to go. But that's just how I am. And the other thing too, is when people attend by phone, if they have to, is, you know, you can't see the screen. So if you do screen share, then you're not having that option to view it. So if a parent's only access is by phone, which a lot of families are, and that's okay, we want to make sure though that you're definitely have access to the materials that they're going to be referencing. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to have those conversations without those documents in front of you.
And it may change when you have the meeting, because if you don't have access to a computer, you may not be able to get the email. And sometimes people say, well, you can read it from your phone. I'm not a fan of reading from my phone. I don't feel like it's the same as having a larger screen. So you may need a hard copy. So if you're going to get a hard copy, you may need to reschedule, because now you have to wait for the mail. But again, that's why communication is important, flexibility, and the members who are going to be at the PPT. You may not need every single person at the virtual PPT that you did before. So keep that in the back of your mind. Who's going to be present? What's the value of having that staff person present? And if there's data that's going to be discussed, are you getting it through email? Are you comfortable viewing it through your phone, or do you need a hard copy?
And I should probably say too that sometimes, when they ask if someone can leave the meeting, the same thing will happen virtually. So if you're okay with that person leaving, it's okay to say yes, right? Sometimes after the math teacher gives the report, you're like, okay, they're going to go back and maybe they have a virtual class to get back to. So it's interesting to watch things happen in virtual world, just like they would happen in person, but now we're all boxes. We did have a question. So it's, what is the process for getting support or advocacy from someone in your organization at these meetings? So that is definitely a question that you can call in and we can talk about. CPAC is here to support families and empower you with all the information that we need to. We do support families sometimes at PPTs, but our first step is to talk to you and to help you by giving you all the information you need to be your child's best advocate, because you know your child best.
I have a question.
Sure. Oops.
Is there any training for parents for PPTs and transition meetings? Because I've taken PLTI, but they didn't really cover the advocating for your child meeting part. They showed you the school system, who to contact, but they didn't really touch base on how they're supposed to be set up, how the documents look, what we're allowed to ask for, what are our children's rights in this. That's where I am. I just did a.
So Lisa is, I see her unmuting because she's got the answer for this, and you asked the question at the perfect time because we have the perfect program for you that starts next week. So go ahead, Lisa.
So we have a program at CPAC called Next Steps.
Okay.
I'm currently the coordinator of it. We're doing one starting next week virtually. So it's Tuesday and Thursday nights. It's 6 weeks. We go over how to your role at the PPT. We go over reading your IEP, understanding your IEP. We go over transition. We go over, my goodness,
what happens when you disagree?
What happens when you disagree, because sometimes that happens. We go over all aspects of it. And we talk about transition. We talk about 504s. We have a little section about COVID things that we've been working on. Just because the last time we did it, it was the beginning of COVID. So we wanted to know about all the guidance being released little by little. If you want, I'd be happy to have you participate. It's totally free. And all of us parent consultants actually started out, I think all of us, yes? Everybody? We all started out taking this, except for Keo.
Okay.
But we were all kind of picked out of the groups, and we kind of decided to further our interest in it this way. So it's a great program. It's called Next Steps. I'll put my email there. You can just email me and I'll get you the application. It's totally free. It has so much information, and it is just you leave there just feeling so much more empowered to be your child's advocate.
And if you take that with your PLTI skills, it's going to be a great benefit to working specifically with families that have disabilities. So
I've been asking around like the little advocacy group that I'm part of, and I'm like, I need more. And they're like, no, you need to take this. So I've done PEP, I've done PLTI, and I'm just missing the school part, that key to the school. That's what I need.
And I was a teacher, so I run a lot of them. I was a teacher, so I have it from both the parent and the teacher perspective. And then Kara asked if there was a flyer, and we do. If you look right on this website, the CPAC page, we have it's posted there. But I'm going to put my email in the comments, and then feel free to just shoot me an email, and I'll get you the application, and I'll send you all the flyer too if you'd like. You can pass it out to as many people as possible.
So I'm going to add that it's a parent leadership training. So think about that as well. So we're not only just providing the information for parents, but we want to build leaders in the community so that you can go back and support other parents. And then if you're ever interested, after this training, they do one where you guys would present a particular topic of your choice to see how you present. Because sometimes that's scary for some families. And then when you're at the PPT, hopefully by having a chance to present your own topic, you'll have a comfort level of speaking up at the PPT with information you gained from the training.
All right, am I able to share it on Facebook? Because I run a Facebook parents group, Merit and Parents, And it's a huge question I'm getting from parents. It's about 1,000 parents that are like asking that they need help with like special needs and PPTs and all that.
Yep, we'd love to have you share far and wide.
Great. So actually, I want to take a moment. Keo, you're probably going to say what I'm thinking, so go for it.
We also offer it in Spanish, and we're also working on it, Adriana and I, to do it in the next few weeks as well, so that it kind of goes aligned with the English session.
That was my next question. Thank you so much.
Well, so Phyllis had her hand up, and she has assured me that she really has a question. So Phyllis, go ahead.
Okay, I'm hopefully gonna have a virtual PPT this summer. I talked to the guy in charge of me, and I told him, share with him about you trying to wait till the fall. That's gonna be a problem. Now you got everybody that's missed theirs, and the ones that's coming in new. You know. He said, "You're right. He said, "Is it possible we can have it during the summer?" I said, "That's fine with me." And what I want to know is, I always have a problem with this. When we're having the PPT, the person, the administrator that's taking notes, they always put the parent concerns in the summary. Now, I've been trained and told to have them say, when I say parent concerns, it goes on page 4, not in the summary. How do I address that again to make sure that it's being done? Because the last time it was done, they took down what I said and take down what the other person said. So when somebody reads that information, all they know is what the parent said, not what the other team member said.
So Phyllis, if I could answer that question, I would encourage you to send your statement ahead of time so that everyone has a chance to read it, and you could ask them to include it in the document as it is written. So I prefer if you did it beforehand so that they're prepared to have the conversation with you the day of. That's your prep time. But if by chance you decide to share it that day, you could do a screen share, or you can follow up with an email to say, I want to ensure that this is what's documented under parent concerns, which is page 4. Anybody else wants to add anything?
Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm new. My name is Yan. I have been in many IEPs for my son. My son currently in the transitional high school. So I have a lot of trouble with IEP meetings. And, the outreach placement coordinator will talk to me at a certain time about a certain topic. But during the PPT, while everybody is around, she will say another thing. So I just had the IEP requesting for summer course. So during that PPT, I invite some of the people in the PPT. So my question is, do they write up the PPT in this case, or consider IEP meeting during the PPT? I just send the email to them, recap whatever discussed in the PPT. Do I expect they respond by written up IEP for this PPT meeting? That's my question.
I'm not sure I understand. Can you summarize it for me?
Okay, I summarize is, I just had a PPT 2 days ago with people involved, including the public school personnel in the meeting. So we have discussed that my son take a summer course, that the school will pay for it. Whatever course is that, is a prep course for college. So in the past, the school has forgotten what they say during the PPT and come back say, I don't remember what I said, So this time, because I have a few people involved, including a person who worked with my son in the PPT, also have a DCBA in the PPT. And therefore, everybody is involved. So I did not receive anything about the PPT, but it's just a conversation. They agreed that I will pay for the course and the school will reimburse. How can I make sure on this PPT and the content of the PPT, they are accounted for the PPT?
So I would say put something in writing on your end as a follow-up to say, hey, we met 2 days ago during the PPT, we discussed XYZ. If I don't hear from you and you put a specific date, I will assume that as I have shared with you, it's the same as what you proposed during the meeting, and therefore I expect payment, and then you give a date by whatever date you feel would be reasonable.
Yeah, so
I believe because it probably go under like a purchase order, because if it's not credit recovery and you said a course of your choice,
yeah,
I'm kind of curious how they agree to do that, because usually for summer school, it's for students to avoid regression, not necessarily to introduce anything new or for enrichment. So are you saying this is summer school or?
He's Manchester Community College. He is high function in the spectrum. So, and he has been wanting to take courses, and they told me he's not ready. And because he's on the spectrum, he is ready. You know, people work with, he's ready. So I advocate for him to take course. They asked me to pay for it, and they are going to reimburse me. Okay. I just want to make sure.
I have a question.
Is it a transition program?
Transition, yes.
Okay.
So, Jane, can I interject real quickly? My son went through the exact same thing that you're going through. It was discussed and approved at the PPT meeting. Therefore, I requested a legal document called prior written notice, just saying that they were going to fulfill what it was discussed at the PPT meeting. Usually, prep colleges, they require a letter of intent or a letter of commitment from your district. If that's the case, I would suggest that you reach out to the summer college program that he will be attending and just make that connection, get the letter of commitment from your district. If it was agreed upon in the meeting, there's no reason why you cannot follow up with an email like Keo said, or ask for prior written notice. This is what it was discussed. The actions proposed was that he was to go there. And so I'm asking for that document. And I think we can email you more information about prior written notice.
Okay, that would be great. If you can email, I believe you have my email. I don't know, I can type for you. My email, can I type that for you? Hold on. So
you can type it in the chat, yes.
Yeah. So hold the chat. So.
Lynn, did you have something else to add?
No, that was, you already covered it. But I definitely start with a follow-up to everybody that was in the meeting, that this is what was discussed, and yes, that you want to have that put in writing.
Yeah, I put in writing and put the PPT, and this is what you
agreed, I say, and this is what you agreed. I just want to make sure the process is still going. I think I'll wait for a couple of days and have a follow-up with them. After I receive your email, I just want to make sure. I've been fighting so hard, I'm tired, you know. And they have been denied many times individual work. They said, no, I did not say that. It's become—
If you're having such difficulty, next time, tell them in advance you want to record your meeting.
Okay.
So that this way your meeting's recorded and you don't have to worry about did I or did I not say it? Did they hear me? Did they misunderstand what I was asking for? It'll be recorded, and the recording becomes part of that document. Usually when you record, they will record. Now that it's virtual, depending on the platform that they use, they probably choose that platform to record the meeting. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay, thank you. So thank you. That is very helpful. I appreciate it very much to answer my question.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I also was going to say that I kind of follow up when I have phone calls or unofficial meetings. I always follow up with an email just so that I have documentation of when the conversation happened, when it happened, so that if I write saying, hey, it was so nice to catch up with you after school. Thanks for sharing. I'm happy we have this plan for Milo to be successful doing da-da-da-da-da. I look forward to working more, continuing our relationship, whatever it is. And then once they write back, yes, it was great, then I have confirmation that that's what that conversation was about. If
That's
they
right.
don't write back, I also have the confirmation, you know, so that it's all put out there. So I keep it, if it's in Word and we have documentation of when it was written, all that stuff, I try to keep, you know, follow-ups that way. And it's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much. They are very good not to answer questions.
Good.
But I will keep pushing through. Thank you so much for your advice. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I have a question if I could ask about my daughter. I'm like new to this process. She's had a PPT in her preschool, an IEP in her preschool, and been getting services through that IEP. And she had a meeting for her transition meeting for kindergarten. I don't know if that's even called a PPT. I honestly have just been getting documents and filing them, and like, I'm sorry, I'm very emotional because I feel that when COVID hit, she wasn't getting her speech, which is the most important thing for her at this time, as her speech isn't understandable. And I reached out to a speech therapist, and she felt that a lot hadn't been done for her. And I really am at a loss to how to proceed, if I should just be saving money to do private evaluations and speech, or if I have some recourse, and if I do, what's the best way to go about that? Thank you.
Somebody want to take it, or I'll take it?
I just have an additional question.
Okay.
So, Shari, so did they do an SLP, speech and language evaluation?
No.
They have not conducted one. Okay, so your frustration stems from the fact that they don't know where her speech levels are and expressive and receptive communication language skills.
And this is before COVID.
Yes.
So this isn't as a result of COVID.
No, I feel like as a result of COVID and actually contacting someone outside of the school district, that all of this has been uncovered, and I'm frustrated that I feel also part of what that speech therapist's possible diagnosis wasn't even worked on. And actually we were told that it was too early, like a lot of her problems, articulation, and she could have motor therapy, and we were told it's too early to know about articulation, as opposed to someone saying, oh, we can do an evaluation. So I feel like I was very uneducated, and I'm now feeling like I've been wasting 3 years or something, and I don't even know how to proceed.
So if I can just ask, I just want clarity here. You do have an IEP for her.
I do.
And she has speech services that are supposed to be delivered, correct?
She does.
So have you been documenting all along, or if you can document the amount of time that speech was provided to her, if it was done remotely? And
nothing's been done remotely.
Okay, so that's definitely one thing that you want to make note of. And I believe that I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues. You would want to call a PPT meeting to discuss the services that have not been delivered, where she's going to go forward. Following up to Adriana's point, if they did a comprehensive speech evaluation or not, that's also something that you would want to follow up with them. But don't look at it as having wasted any time, because you're reaching out and asking questions now. So you're moving forward. So you want to move forward, and don't beat yourself up about looking back.
And so the way to proceed is to call, or to like, I don't even, do I ask her teacher, who seems to be running the show, and say, I'd like to call a PPT?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Shari, I feel that there's a disconnect between what the school feels that an appropriate evaluation was for her. Yeah. You have talked about pronunciation issues. so oral motor therapy.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they're not understanding those needs.
Yeah.
So I would refer back to the PPT process.
Okay.
If you can, my advice to parents is always put it in writing in a letter requesting your PPT, the motives for why you're asking that PPT, and that would be to reconsider or rediscuss the issue of an appropriate full comprehensive evaluation in the areas of speech and language. And if you have any other professionals working with her, you mentioned that you don't know if you should go in the community and obtain an evaluation.
Right.
If she has been seen by another professional that can weigh into that decision and say, yes, this is a child who has oral motor deficits and definitely will require those. So I would add that as well into your documentation, into your letter for them for the PPT, and try to work through it at the PPT meeting. And if you ever need any more support, guidance, and one-to-one, you have CPAC consultants. Here we are for you to guide you through the process. So you're not alone.
Thank you so much.
Can I speak to her from Mama Bear to Mama Bear?
Yeah, I was about to do the same. Go.
I was her a year ago. Sherry, start with her pediatrician. Her pediatrician could document everything for you, so you don't have to keep the binder yourself. You could keep one, but the pediatrician is your best network to pull from.
Okay.
And she'll tell you the ins and outs of the school as well. So if you've spoken up to her pediatrician about these developmental delays, she has a documentation of it in her chart. So you have that as well. For yourself, self-care, honey, get a therapist so you can vent this out. You have it all in. Don't beat yourself up. Right. That was the best tip I got from another advocate. Get a therapist. You're going to need it. It's not easy, okay? Hang in there. You're doing the best thing you can for your daughter.
Thank you.
And Sherry, is she going to kindergarten next year?
Yes. And
okay, so I have a pair of twins that are going to kindergarten and coming straight out of special education. I'd love to talk to you a little bit and just let you know, because it's just such an overwhelming thing. We're still very much at the beginning of this special education journey, and there's so much for all of us to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just nice to have somebody just like Emily, who was, you know, so upfront and honest. This is such a stressful thing, and we always feel like there's things that we're missing or things that aren't happening. And you have to realize that you're an amazing mom.
Thank you.
And it's, even on those days, it doesn't feel like it. So I'm going to shoot you my email, and we're going to plan a time to talk tomorrow, or even this afternoon, or in the middle of the night, whatever works for you.
Thank you. I'll email back.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And you also have to remember, you know what you know when you need to know. So now is when you know this, and COVID has really made things a little difficult.
Yeah.
Some unions have discouraged from live sessions, which has impacted direct services for kids that are getting other related services like speech, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. However, there's still an obligation that to the maximum extent possible, schools are really working with families to provide services and implement the IEP. And if that's not happening, so for example, maybe they just upload an activity sheet on Google Classroom, or maybe text you an activity for speech, that's not implementing the IEP. So that's a conversation that you can have with the Bureau. And I just gave you 2 contacts because they want to hear from families. So as an agency, we're telling them families are reporting this, and they're saying we're not hearing from them. So I specifically asked Brian Kunkiewicz, who's the Bureau chief, and he says, have them call us. So what they could do is potentially call on your behalf, because the idea is that schools are documenting every effort that they've made. So guidance is not law. I want all of you to understand this. So the Bureau has put out guidance. It's not law. However, if you were to request due process, they're going to look at, did the school at least follow the guidance? Because if they at least follow the guidance, they will be supported. But if they didn't even follow the guidance and chose to do absolutely nothing, then you have an opportunity to potentially get compensatory services. It doesn't mean every single person's going to get compensatory services. However, you may be a candidate for the speech. So it may not happen during extended school year. I don't even know if they've discussed that with you, ESY. or if it's going to be something that they look at in the fall to provide for you. But I encourage you to please call immediately. Obviously not, well, actually maybe after our call, you may put in a call, at least leave a voicemail. But I gave you the phone number to each one that's taking calls right now. And I also put our agency's contact number as well for you. And for anyone, that goes for anyone that's on the call. You can call Jay Brown or Jim, and I can't pronounce the last name, so one of you can do it for me.
Yeah, thank you so much. They discussed that she would get camp or extended services, and that it would be going on the same way as it's going on now, which is they just send me slides.
So this is the thing, if it's not working, you don't want more of the same.
Yeah.
So this is why I strongly encourage you to call the Bureau, because guess what? And this is what I was told by Brian, so I'm gonna tell you exactly what Brian said. I was like, Brian, I'm telling the parents exactly what I'm telling you. Why isn't anything changed? He said, Keo, because we're the Bureau. Let the Bureau call. So the Bureau will actually call on your behalf and say, hey, what's going on here? I have this mom that called me, this concern. And the idea is that they're gonna try to remedy the situation and do something different than what they're doing now. Okay. And hopefully you'll be happy, your daughter will get services. I'll also add to that, yes, the school has an obligation to provide supports for other related services like speech, but you can also through your insurance get these services, and you can duplicate the two because they are providing teletherapy. I don't know why the schools haven't automatically adopted. I know, like I said earlier, unions have discouraged, and Amy knows because Amy even told us last week during one of the calls, she's on the call, but you can get teletherapy too, so that at least she's getting something and it's not completely dependent on the school, because right now, as of, I don't know, what is it, March something, when COVID happened, a lot of kids are not getting speech, definitely not direct instruction.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
You know what, my speech therapist was concerned that if I didn't take the right steps, that even if I paid or went through my own insurance, that I could potentially be compensated, that she didn't want to start and then interfere with compensation. And I just was like, well, what am I supposed to do right now?
There are two different models. One's a medical model, so they're going to do things differently than they would in school. Amy, you're a speech path. I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about those differences. I kind of threw you in there.
I actually just asked Lisa, can I jump in here as
yes, girl, do.
So Sherry, I have a few questions. One, do you know what your daughter's identification is on her IEP? Is she developmentally delayed right now?
It was speech delay. I don't know what they changed it to, if they changed it to anything. She originally was getting PT, OT, and speech.
Okay, so every 3 years a child needs to be evaluated. So that will happen in kindergarten if she's coming from 2 years of preschool. So that's something that no matter what should be happening soon, but it is something that you can request at any point to have an evaluation. The other thing you mentioned, outside services, I never ever discourage a family from looking for extra help. So even though I feel like I'm providing good services for my students, if a family wants outside services, they shouldn't be discouraged. If anything, I'm more than happy to work with an outside therapist. And that should be the case across the board. And also you said you didn't really know who was in charge. The front page of your IEP says the case manager's name. So that would be the technical person in charge, but also the special ed director is listed on the IEP. So you should be able to contact them directly. Don't wait to schedule a PPT though. Call.
Okay. Call. Okay.
Call or email. I mean, either way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you email, then there is documentation that you called. So that definitely helps.
Okay. Great.
And keep in mind, because it's towards the end of the school year, they may discourage having a PPT. However, extended school year is still going to happen. So you may just have a different team, not the same team you usually work with. So try to negotiate that. Again, it's about communication, flexibility. And if it's about evaluating, they have to be done in a certain way. And Amy is the speech that she knows. So that may be the barrier for you, that you won't be able to have it done over the summer because they require to do face-to-face, but at least have something lined up so that once things kind of open up for the fall, hopefully, your daughter could be on the roster, and then she could be evaluated, and then you have data and also a plan moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So there's been such great conversation. We still have a little bit of time for today, but I just want everyone to know that in the chat book or chat box or on Facebook Live in the comments, there's a lot of the resources that were talked about. So from our next step flyer to a link to our next steps training information page. Thank you, Keo. Jen jumped in and got prior written notice when Adriana talked about it, and that's on there as well. So you can reference back to all of these things that were talked about today, as well as Lisa's information about next steps and her email and anything else. So please take a look at the chat box. And like I said, all of it has gone to Facebook Live. So I just want you to know that those resources are there for you today, as long as Keo's number and names to the Bureau as well. I think that was everything. So any other questions? I know we have a couple more things that we would probably just kind of talk about tips for PPTs. Keo is great because she made a list. So, but descriptions.
I was ready, girl.
I know. Descriptions, but you know what? There's two things too, though. That came to my mind. If I can just go back to Sherry for 1 second. And Keo, when you started it, and I knew she was going to go there because it's the word she said to me years ago. And I'm not going to say it like she does, but it's, you don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. Mm-hmm. And the guilt I felt, Sherry, I felt you because my son is older, but when I was there, it's like, if I had known then, if I had known, you're starting at a great time. You've got this, you really do. And when Keo said that to me years ago, probably as my next step trainer at one point, this is COVID live here. But when she said it to me years ago, after a while, I was able to kind of let go of a little bit of that guilt that I was feeling. Why didn't I do things sooner? So really take that. It's a great thing. So I had to go back to that. But Keo, I know on your list was description. So I like being specific. So if you want to talk about that or.
So one of the things that we've been told is, so a lot of times families want to tell their story, and usually you connect through stories. But when you call the Bureau, we want you to try to be as descriptive as you can. Talk about what the barrier is, what were they doing differently? What are you doing now? So if you're getting an activity sheet that's texted to you, it's not the same thing as getting a phone call to say, hey, Mom, how are things going? Have you tried this? I know they're really discouraged with live sessions due to confidentiality. Some will quote FERPA, some will quote HIPAA. However, the Bureau has not said you can't do it. The Bureau has encouraged for them to do it. And when I say them, I mean the district. So this is really hard because there's no equity. There are some districts that are doing live sessions, and there are some districts that have decided they're not going to do these sessions. And it's hard when in your own district, some are doing it and some are not. So it makes it even harder for you probably. So we really want you to kind of hone in on what the issue is. And if you have a remedy in mind, then please share that as well. If you feel that maybe a pre-recorded session is acceptable to you versus a live session because they're gung-ho that they don't want to do that. Because the Bureau is not enforcing it. They're not saying you have to. They're just not saying you don't have to. So I want to be clear on that. The other thing that I want to share with you guys is about concerns. You're probably thinking, when you go to this PPT, whether it's virtual or in person, did I prepare enough? Do they understand my concerns? Am I being clear? And probably you're self-conscious because now they have a window to your home, into your home environment. So just so that you could change the background. Lynn has her background changed, so feel free to know that that's an option. Because I know some families are declining doing virtual PPTs because they're afraid of showing people their home. They're afraid of what kids may scream or say. Just prepare yourself. Don't let that be a barrier. Maybe you wonder, how will they react? What are they thinking while I'm talking? But the idea is that you prep before and you follow up after. So send an email, say, hey, this is what I shared during the meeting. This is what I heard. Please let me know. Because you want to memorialize the conversation in the event that they come back. Just like, I think it was Jane that said, they say something in the meeting and then all of a sudden they forgot. You can also ask to record. Remember, these PPTs are not one and done. You can always go back. You also have to think about the rules are a little different right now because of COVID. So what you may be agreeing to right now may be very different to what you agree in the fall once you're in person. So keep that in the back of your mind. So allow for some flexibility there. There's also federal law, state law, there's rules, there's policies, and there's habits. Sometimes the districts are in the habit of saying no, but that doesn't mean that's law. So keep that in mind. I'm looking at my notes. I want to make sure due to time.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick because I want to go back to where you said about, understanding that you can go back, it's not one and done, and you can go back, and the conversation now might look different than the conversation in September. But I do just want to remind everybody that if you're having an annual meeting and you're planning for next year, you should be planning for in person and what it would look like in September. We shouldn't be planning for right now. Right now, we might be making adjustments and some accommodations, but some of that conversation should look like what's going to happen when we go back to school.
Absolutely. And when you think about the statement, because Phyllis brought this up, so you want your parent statement to be clear for them. It's not about complaints. The PPT is not meant for complaints. You don't want guesswork. You want to be able to describe what it is that you see for your child, and that includes for social, emotional, academics, communication, self-regulation. You want them to be looking at independence. If you're worried about that they're not going to understand what you're saying, use the chat box. If there's issues sometimes with the sound, say to them, listen, I feel like it's not coming across clear. I have some feedback. I'm going to type my questions to you in the chat box. Know where it's at. I said this earlier to our team, and I don't know if we've said this already. Try to do a test run if you can with the platform the day before, or not the day of, because technology could be hit or miss. And also the backup plan. And also, when are you going to get your turn? Because sometimes they start the meeting and everybody talks, and then you feel like you can't jump in. Know that you can. Try to identify a staff person, preferably ahead of time, so that if you have a question, they said something too quick, you can quickly reach out to that person. Maybe it's through your phone via text and say, hey, I'm not understanding what's going on. If you require an interpreter, how are you going to communicate with that interpreter? Maybe you want to have that person's cell phone so you could text, or you're going to use the chat box. I know some people are a little skeptical about the chat box, even though you can send messages privately to the one person, because they're afraid that they may make a mistake and then everyone sees what's being written. So just come up with a plan that works for you. Think about the goals. Where's the child at? Where's the child going? How will they get there? That's the purpose for the PPT. What's important for you long-term? What are your thoughts about the future? And that's all for your parent statement. I don't know, anybody else want to chime in?
I was hoping maybe Lynn might chime in for a second. If Lynn, you wanted to talk about, we had talked about earlier when we were talking about if you have someone come with you for support, how you can communicate with them.
So when I've done a couple of PPTs virtually, and when I was working with a friend, and we had kind of worked it out ahead of time so that I would send her a private message in the chat to look at her phone, and so I would give her a text. We actually got to a point where she didn't understand what I was trying to text her, and so she did say, can you excuse me for just 1 minute, and did mute herself, which I was happy that I saw that she did that. So muted herself and called me so that we could just kind of talk a little bit offline. So that's also something that you can always feel free to do. Just like if you were in a meeting and you wanted to step aside, or if you were passing a note to someone that was there to support you, you ask someone to come to a meeting with you to provide you with support. So just because it's all being done virtual does not mean that you lose that support piece. And I think I might have said at the beginning, if you, going back to the point that we keep making, you don't know what you don't know. So if you are not feeling comfortable being on that kind of a platform, asking again for some sort of ground rules to be established, where you are able to mute and unmute yourself, because you are also a part of this process. And so if someone else has control of the meeting and they are not allowing you to unmute yourself, you need to be able to get that point across.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask if there's any other questions before we go ahead and wrap it up for today. I
No,
really
not a question, but I want to say this. I was always trained to, when I go into a meeting, let them know I'm going to say what I got to say first. Rather than they give me their opinions, and I'm like, but you don't know what my concerns are, so how are you going to give me your opinion? And so I was told to do it that way, and they kind of like, oh, you know, sit back and like, okay, what do you got to say? Then let them make their comments on what I have concerns about with my daughter. Okay.
I'll say thank you. It is really important to share a parent's perspective in the meeting. We started by saying, you are your parent, you are your child's best advocate. You know them the best. So it's important for you to be honest and open with the district to let them know what it's like. From your side, they might not necessarily always see the same things, or they might not necessarily understand exactly where the family is coming from. So sharing pieces really helps it come together and collaborate as a team to really help form that best plan that they can for your child. So thank you very much. So thank you guys. Lisa, I'll let you end it because you're our host today, but it was really a great conversation between here and Facebook. A lot of people joining us and a lot of people giving us information. So we really appreciate that. I'll let everyone give a shout out to, maybe we start with Keo and then we'll go to, so Keo or Adriana, if you want to both talk about, Adriana, we have a lot of young people here today. Why don't you talk about Family Connections?
We do, yes, definitely. So I want to invite Sherry to connect with me as well. We have a program called Preschool Pathfinder, and it's for families who are 3 to 5 years old. We help them if they're having difficulties with the school transitioning, but we can also, you and I can work and I can guide you through that. We also have another program, Family Connections, and that one is for families enrolled in birth to 3. So if you guys know any families who need support, we provide emotional support, guidance. You know, during the COVID, there's so many new guidance coming out from birth to 3. So we help families in that regards. We have a Facebook group. We post resources. We do webinars. So that's it for me. Keo.
Thank you.
We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a parent support call in Spanish. We try to connect to Facebook, but Facebook connection can be hit or miss. So we do have a link if anyone's interested and would like to share. Please join us. And then we have a learning series every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, which is meant for this, so that we're teaching families about PPTs and nuts and bolts of special ed, also in Spanish. So please join us for that.
And you did mention earlier, but I'll say it, is that Next Steps in Spanish is coming during the summer. So as Lisa goes ahead and talks about, again, quick overview of our upcoming Next Steps starting next week, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a program where we've never had anybody walk away saying they didn't feel more empowered as their parent's advocate, as their child's advocate. It is the proof that knowledge is power and confidence. And it's a quick way to gain a lot of information. It's really nice to also talk to people that get it, other parents or professionals that really understand where you're coming from. And we've had some really great outcomes. So we'd love to have as many people participate as possible. It's really a phenomenal program that really gives you an overview. I kind of refer to it all the time as like special ed 101 for parents, like how to know what's the right thing to do, how to get things done, how to effectively communicate with the districts, because you're going to be with these people till they're 21 possibly. So it's a really empowering program. So I hope everybody will come out for it. Absolutely. Or stay in. We'll do it.
Stay in and show up. Stay in and show up. And on every Tuesday in English, we have basically an educational series. Next week, we are not 100% sure, but we'll either take a break or there'll be something and we'll advertise it. And Thursday will be the support call, just like this. So we hope you come back out at 3 p.m. So I think that's everything we have coming up at CPAC next week. We really appreciate everybody joining us, and feel free to reach out to us to ask any questions. We have 14 parent consultants and we are here for you. So everybody have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes.
You. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.